Welcome once again, my friends, and thank you for stopping by to listen to an old storyteller. Today we have a story from Russia, and the title of this story is Prince Hedgehog. Once upon a time, there was an emperor and an empress who for many years had been childless. One day the empress wished for a son, were he no bigger than a hedgehog. The proverb says, "What one wishes for, that one gets." And so it was with her, for she shortly gave birth to a son who looked exactly like a hedgehog and was covered all over with sharp spines. Far and wide the news was spread abroad through the world, and the parents were much ashamed of such a son. Nevertheless, they had him educated in all useful knowledge, and he had so clever a head that by the time he was 14, he knew all knowledge through and through. By this time his parents could no longer endure him near them, and they assigned to him a great forest as a place of abode, feeling certain that he would then fall prey to a wolf or a fox or some sort of beast. They strictly commanded him not to return before the expiration of 7 years. They gave him permission, however, to take with him anything that he especially cared for. But he would take nothing whatever except a sow and a great cock upon which he was wont to ride. With these he went away into the forest. Year out, year in, Prince Hedgehog remained in the forest, and he raised so many swine that at last they were too many for even him to count. Finally he thought to himself, "My 7 years are up. I will go back home." So he quickly gathered his swine together and drove them to the city of his parents. When they perceived afar off the immense drove of swine, they thought, "Well, here comes a wealthy swine drover." But soon they recognized their son, who was riding upon his cock behind the swine and making straight for the imperial castle. So they received him into the castle and showed him the best of hospitality, dividing his swine among different pens, where they filled every swine pen in the city. While they were at table, they asked their son how he enjoyed himself in the forest, and said that if he wished to go back there, they would give him a goat this time. But he declared that he was not going back, for he had made up his mind to marry. The astonished parents replied, "Why, what maiden would love you and take you for a husband?" The poor youth knew no answer to this question, so he mounted his cock and rode sadly away. Now, the parents thought he would never come back again, but he was a clever fellow, and he went as a suitor to the king of a neighboring country who had 3 unmarried daughters. When he found himself near the city, the cock flew up with him to the window of the room in which guests were assembled, enjoying themselves. The cock crowed with all his might until the chamberlain went to the window and asked what he wanted. The hedgehog answered, "I come a-wooing." Then the king permitted him to come into the room and offered him the welcome cup, according to the ancient manner and custom. Then the king again asked him what business brought him, and Hedgehog, the imperial prince, answered him shortly and to the point, "I come a-wooing." The king immediately assured him that he had only to choose one of the 3 unmarried daughters. The hedgehog chose the youngest, but she would not have him for a husband until her father threatened to have her banished unless she gave a cheerful consent. She saw no help for it, and thought to herself, "I can never get out of this scrape. Come what may, I'll take him. We have gold and treasure in abundance, and we shall easily get along through life." When the hedgehog had received her consent, he went back to his parents and told them what had happened to him. His parents would not believe him, and sent the chamberlain to inquire if it was true that the emperor's son, the hedgehog, was to marry the king's daughter. When the chamberlain returned and told the emperor that his son had spoken the truth, the emperor ordered his horses to be harnessed, and went with his wife to visit the king, riding in their carriage, while their son rode behind on his cock. When they arrived, they found everything ready for the wedding. But, according to custom, the bridal party were obliged to go to the church a few days before the marriage to pray and confess to the priest. When the young lady came to confession, she asked the priest how she might manage to get rid of the prince and not be obliged to marry him. The priest gave her a sound scolding and said in conclusion, "Just keep quiet and all will end well. Mark what I say, and remember it well. When you are come into the church and are taking your place in the sacristy, do you follow close behind the others. When you get to the high altar, sprinkle your bridegroom thrice with holy water, and be careful to prick yourself each time with one of his spines. Then 3 drops of blood will trickle out of your hand, and you must let these also fall upon him." After confession, the bridal pair went home to breakfast. The next day, it was a Sunday, the bridal party went at 11:30 into the church, and the bride did in every respect as the priest had counseled. And behold, the hedgehog was transformed into a beautiful youth, whose like was not to be found in all the world. Then the bridal party sat down upon the benches and heard mass, and the priest united them and preached them a sermon how they should cleave to each other all their lives long. After that they went back to the house, and the wedding feast lasted until late into the night.
Thank you once again for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please press that like button. Also, please help an old storyteller out by subscribing to my channel. The next story will be posted in a few days, so until then, may your story continue to be a good one.